Welcome back everyone. You join me out and about on the electric bike, which has rapidly become my favourite mode of transport. It is just perfect for out here in Spain. It gets me about nice and quick, easy to park, and a shed load of fun, I've got to tell you. I wanted to touch on something that Danny and I spoke about the other night on the live stream. Being in business. And I think you got basically, in general, two types of people when it comes to careers. You've got those that are quite happy to work for someone else. Often it's a much less stressful way of life working for someone else. You let them do the worrying. You go home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and that's it until the following day. Whereas if you're self-employed, then you're always at work, aren't you? You're always working. No matter what time of day or night it is, you are on duty. And for me, I've always enjoyed the challenge of being self-employed. I've only had one job in my life. That is when I worked for Fulham Football Club, and that was really a labour of love more than anything. You know, they're my lifelong boyhood football club, and when the chance came to go and work there, I jumped at the opportunity. But even then, I couldn't really get used to, if I'm honest, I couldn't really get used to having a boss, someone to tell me what to do, when I could do it. Probably more importantly, what I couldn't do or couldn't say. So for most of my life, I've been self-employed. You guys know, if you follow me long enough, I had a 4-year career in the world of professional boxing, not as a boxer, I might add. More involved with the promotional side of professional boxing, worked with some of the biggest names in international boxing. Was a great period, probably, to be honest with you, probably the most exciting period of my working career. Meeting so many famous people, and you know, boxing is closely linked with show business as well. So, you know, the two kind of go hand in hand. So if you're in the world of professional boxing, you're often mixing with, you know, people that are in show business as well. I don't know where I'm going, by the way. So that was you know, back in the 80s as well, which for me was the best decade. The 1980s were fantastic. That is when we were, you know, I think the end of the 1980s started to mark the end of our freedoms as we know them. But they were great times, and being self-employed brings its rewards, it brings its risks as well. Of course, it brings risks, but it does bring its rewards. And apart from the freedom to be your own boss, which is obviously very, very nice, apart from the freedom of being your own boss, it can also bring you the financial rewards. And it takes bravery. You know, I take my hat off to anyone that is self-employed, that gets up in the morning and knows that if he doesn't deliver, he's not going to be able to pay the mortgage or feed his family. That is quite a unique pressure, and that is why a lot of people, probably obviously the vast majority of people, choose to have a job and let that strain belong to someone else. And I spoke about risk versus reward the other night. If you don't take any risks in life, there are very rarely any rewards. For me, some of the most risky things that I've done in my life, business-wise, have paid the biggest dividends. I mean, when I was in the watch and jewellery business, I met some fabulous businessmen, that have been in the game for donkey's years, some of them before I was born, some real experienced old pros, not just in business but in life. And, probably one of the most apt and accurate sayings that I learnt from a dealer, an old dealer, an old boy. I think he's dead now, God rest his soul, but he once told me that in the jewellery business, in the antiquity business, the bigger your balls, the bigger your profit margin. What did he mean by that? Well, he meant be brave, believe in your ability, believe that if you love something, I'm talking about buying now, if you love something enough to pay £5,000 for it, then someone else will love it enough to pay £7,500 for it. And that's kind of true. Whatever you buy and sell in life, if you go out and buy something, you've got to love it enough, haven't you, to pay the asking price. Now, if you love it enough to pay the asking price, the question you've got to ask yourself is, will there be someone else out there who will love it just that little bit more? And certainly in the watch and jewellery business, antiquities, antiques, that saying is just so accurate. If I was looking for a rare antique piece of jewellery or, something like that, I would have to love it enough to pay the asking price and be confident in my ability that someone else would love it more than me. And my judgment very rarely, if ever, really failed me. And people say to me, how did you get involved in that business? Well, again, I've always said to you that all of my businesses, all of my life, have been a passion for me first, and a business second. I mean, let's look at them. Football, Fulham, a passion. Love football, love my football club. The chance came to work there and earn some money. I grabbed it with both hands. Professional boxing, always been a big fight fan. So when the chance come along to work in the fight game, I grabbed it with both hands. I've worked with horses. Again, another passion of mine. I love my horses, big horseman. So again, when the chance came to work with horses, I've done that as well. And watches and jewellery and antiques. I mean, I have a great passion for history and historical items in particular, more than the watches actually. I love gold, I love it as a metal. It is very historical in many ways. I mean, what is more beautiful than a gold coin that was involved in a shipwreck 500 years ago and has been under the ocean for 500 years, and all of a sudden it's discovered and rescued from the bottom of the sea? How beautiful is that? What a story. And my passion led me to meet so many good people with a similar sort of passion. I had a watch that came off the Titanic, and a gentleman who was on the expedition that discovered the Titanic, the very expedition that discovered the Titanic, he flew all the way from the United States to come and buy this watch from me, this pocket watch. that I'd actually been on the BBC with many years ago. I've tried to find that bit of footage, but for the life of me, I can't find it. I'm probably going back to about 2010, maybe that's why. But the conversation that Danny and I were having the other night about business and businesses kind of inspired this video. I mean, look, anyone out there that wants to start their own business, that has a passion about something in particular, and that is a big sort of tip that I could give you, that go into a business if you can that you're passionate about, because it doesn't feel so much like work. And even if you have a bad day, well, at the very least, you've enjoyed what you've done. You know, for an example, when I worked at Fulham Football Club, wasn't always a great day at the office. We might have lost a game, maybe even to one of our local rivals. So obviously you go home disappointed, and it's not the best day in the office. But at least I was still involved in something that I was passionate about. Same with the boxing. And as I said, the boxing was probably the most exciting, the most glamorous, even though you don't realise it at the time. I mean, I was in my mid-20s, going back a very, very long time now. I did a video with a very good old friend of mine, Peter Shaw. I did a video, I'm sure it's still up. If not, if it is, I'll leave a link in the video description below. Peter knew me back in the 80s when I was involved in boxing. He'd been involved in the fight game all his life. And Peter introduced me to so many people within the fight game, from people like Don King at the very top, to people like Alex Steen, who was, you know, kind of an underworldy fight game figure, great guy, big in the fight game, big name on the London scene and right across the UK. A really, really interesting character. But all the people I met in the fight game were real salt of the earth types. You know, some of them had a little bit sketchy backgrounds. That goes, you know, it goes with the territory in the fight game. But it was a tremendous time, and I look back at it very, very fondly. And, you know, I don't want to start rolling off names of the people that I worked with and that I met, but needless to say, there were many, very, very many, from the sporting and show business world. All of that came about by being around the fight game. Then later on, a little bit later on, early 2000s, I believe this was, a friend of mine who was, well, he was a film director actually, you know, fairly sort of like low budget stuff, but he was a film director. And at the time he was working with Danny Dyer and Tamer Hassan. I'm sure you know both those guys. And he brought Tamer Hassan round to my house one night. It's a funny story, this actually. He just bought himself, my friend this is, not Tamer Hassan, but my friend had just bought himself a Lamborghini. Can't remember what colour it was, but anyway, he just bought himself a Lambo. And he rang me up and he said, "Oh, I've got Tamer in the car with me. We're going to pop round and see her." So they came round to my house, and they were in my office, and we were talking about watches and jewellery and bits and pieces. And I looked out the window and one of me cats was standing on top of me mate's canvas roof on his brand new Lambo, scratching the life out of it. You know how cats do that with their claws. And I had to sort of strategically disappear for a minute to get the cat off his bloody roof. What a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, I've known some people in my life and it's been amazing. It's been amazing. And YouTube, I suppose, is kind of like probably my final career in life, really. And what started out my YouTube channel is I wanted to share my life experiences, of which there's been so much. I wanted to share my life's experiences. I wanted to share the good and the bad. And I think I've done that. You know, I've shared my dark moments of robberies and intimidation by the police and neglect by the police and the authorities. I've shared all that with you, with my audience over the years. You know, a lot of people who have only followed me since I started talking about politics have only not even seen half of it, really, in all honesty. But some of the older viewers that were following me during my watch days, it wasn't just about watches, it was about watch crime, trying to keep people safe, trying to keep the authorities in check when it came to chasing down the watch thieves, and because there was so many problems that came with luxury watch ownership. And you know, finally on that note, we'll touch on the hate that comes on YouTube, the negatives. And we won't talk about the political side of my channel now. We'll talk about the watch side of my channel, because those days are now over and kind of long gone. But it just gives you an idea of, you know, the mentality of people. You know, myself and some friends of mine, you know, with nothing but good intentions in our heart, we started a company called Digital Watch Vault, which was a very clever way of trying to keep people safe, trying to deter watch thieves. The service was completely free of charge. There was no charge to anyone for joining, no charge to anyone for being a part of it. And the naysayers out there did their very, very best from day one to try and destroy it. They tried to question everyone's motives. They tried to tell everyone how it wouldn't work instead of trying to concentrate how it could or might work. And we started off really well. We had massive support from law enforcement, especially in the US, but also in the UK. And things were looking quite bright. And, you know, some very good people invested a lot of money into that project. I think in total, the total amount of money spent would have been close to $500,000 US. And eventually the company had to close down at a huge loss. But what these naysayers out there, what they didn't realise whilst they were rubbing their hands with glee that the project had failed, was that all they'd achieved, all their hatred had achieved and the negativity had achieved, was to, you know, put a halt to any chance that we really had of slowing down the rate of watch crime and bringing the culprits to justice. They'd ruined all that, or they'd helped. It wasn't just their fault, to be fair, but, you know, these people had contributed heavily with their lies, deceit, with their innuendo, with their ridiculous suggestions that this was all about some kind of money grab, which is complete and utter nonsense. I mean, half the people involved in the background that were funding this were just watch enthusiasts that were sick and tired of seeing good, honest people getting robbed. And some of them were getting very badly hurt, and in some cases they were dying, they were getting killed. And we were trying to put a stop to this, but the haters didn't care about that. The haters didn't care about the good things that we were trying to achieve for everyone in the watch business, in the watch industry, and even wider in the jewellery industry. We're trying to keep people, businessmen, and the owners, the ordinary people, we were trying to keep them safe. But the naysayers didn't give a shit about those people. They don't care. They didn't care if someone got robbed or if someone got stabbed or died. All they cared about was trying to ruin someone else's business or life. And you know, 5 or 6 very, very, very good, honest, kind, generous people lost a lot of money trying to do a good thing. And then if we now move that forward into the movement that we kind of have today, it's no different, is it? The naysayers will always try and wreck something that is good. That's what they do. That's all they have in their lives, is to destroy, destruct and ruin. Which I guess is life. It's a shame, but it is what it is. Right, guys, as you can see, I'm outside a place called Media Mart. It is my favourite shop in Spain, where they sell, yeah, it's just like a PC world on steroids. And being a bit of a techie individual, I'm like a pig in the proverbial. So I'm off. Thanks for listening, and have a great weekend. I will see you all soon. God bless everyone.